Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Yeah.
This is where we take the information you've shared and really figure out what matters.
That's right.
Today, we're diving headfirst into Dragon Ball. We're looking at some of the deaths that were, well, impactful, surprising even. You sent over Dragon Ball's most shocking deaths. Dragon Ball, every main character who died and how long they were dead, and also every Dragon Ball character who's died and how, explained.
Quite a bit to work with there.
Definitely. And look, we all know death in Dragon Ball. It can sometimes feel a bit temporary, right? Like a revolving door.
Yeah, that's a fair point. The Dragon Balls are always looming.
But that's not really our focus today.
Yeah.
We want to unpack the deaths that actually hit hard, the ones with real emotional weight, consequences that maybe even the Dragon Balls couldn't just wipe away clean.
Exactly. Moments that showed things were fragile, even with all that power flying around.
Yeah, moments that really stick with you.
Right, because even with that safety net, certain deaths just pierce through. They leave a real mark on the story, on the characters. It really shows how good storytelling works, even when you know revival might be possible.
Okay, let's get into it. First up, Piccolo's sacrifice. Saiyan Saga. This is a big one lots of people point to.
Oh, definitely a classic moment.
And what's so interesting here, you have this former villain, right?
Yeah.
Piccolo. He kind of reluctantly ends up training Gohan.
Yeah, not exactly his first choice.
And then suddenly he throws himself in front of Nappa's blast to save the kid, just like that. It's still pretty shocking thinking back. What makes it stand out beyond just the surprise?
Well, I think it's how it completely flips Piccolo's character on its head. You know, up till then, he was mostly about power, maybe getting back at Goku eventually.
Right, self-interest mostly.
Exactly. And this act, sacrificing himself for Gohan, it showed this huge shift, a real connection had formed there. His last words, saying he'd grown fond of Gohan, I mean, that was powerful stuff, showed real character evolution.
And it wasn't just the emotional gut punch, was it? Because one of the articles mentions how tragic it was because Piccolo dying also meant the Earth's Dragon Balls just vanished, poof, because of the link to Kami.
Precisely. That single act had massive ripple effects. It wasn't just Gohan losing a mentor figure.
It changed everything.
It really did. It obviously fueled Gohan's rage right then. It motivated Goku when he finally got back. And crucially, like you said, losing the Dragon Balls, that directly sets up the entire trip to Namek. That whole massive saga kicks off because of this one sacrifice.
Wow. Okay, next up, Vegeta on Namek, his despair.
Ah, yes. Another heavy one.
Vegeta, the proud Saiyan prince, always obsessed with being the strongest. And then you see him completely broken by Frieza's final form, actually begging Goku for help.
Yeah.
That was, yeah, shocking in a totally different way.
What's really striking there is just the complete demolition of his whole persona, right? Everything he'd built up.
Okay.
All through Namek, he was trying to one-up Goku, prove he was the true Super Saiyan legend, and then begging. It wasn't just admitting defeat. It was like his pride was just shattered in front of everyone.
And his dying wish, asking Goku to avenge the Saiyans.
Yeah, that was a huge turn. Reluctantly admitting Goku might be the one, maybe shifting his own goals just a tiny bit.
And the sources point to this as like the start of his long, complicated turn away from being purely a villain, seeing that tough exterior just crumble. How did that breakdown sort of set the stage for later?
Well, you know, it's interesting. We often talk about Krillin's death triggering Goku's Super Saiyan transformation right after.
Right, Frieza killing Krillin.
Yeah, but seeing Vegeta, his ultimate rival, just utterly humiliated and killed like that probably played a role too, even if it's less direct. It hammered home just how monstrous Frieza was.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like, if Vegeta couldn't stand up to him.
Exactly. It likely pushed Goku even harder. And for Vegeta himself, hitting that absolute rock bottom, that was probably necessary for him to even begin that slow, complex path towards, well, whatever version of good guy he eventually becomes.
Okay, shifting to the Android saga. Android 16, Cell Games. That death felt particularly cruel.
It really did, especially given his nature.
Right, he was basically a pacifist, just trying to tell Gohan to protect life, protect the planet, and the Cell crushes his head.
Yeah.
Casually. Brutally.
Ugh, yeah. It was so senseless. And it was clearly aimed directly at Gohan. It wasn't about eliminating a threat. 16 wasn't fighting. It was purely to inflict pain to provoke Gohan.
And it worked. One source flat out says Android 16 was the straw that broke Gohan. Yeah. It's that moment, right? The innocent victim pushed too far, unleashing the hero's power. Why do you think that death was the trigger for Gohan?
That's a good question. I think sometimes it's not the threat to yourself, but seeing that kind of pointless cruelty, that injustice against someone innocent, that's the breaking point. Android 16, even though he was a machine, he represented this, like, pure desire for peace in that moment. Seeing him destroyed, just crystallized cells evil for Gohan, showed him the stakes. It finally pushed him over the edge.
It is kind of ironic, isn't it?
Yeah.
A non-living being's death having that kind of profound impact.
It really is quite compelling.
Okay, let's jump ahead to Dragon Ball Super. Goku Black. That was weird.
Yeah. Weird is one word for it. Unsettling.
Because it wasn't just a character dying. It was like the opposite. A character's identity being stolen and twisted.
Totally. The reveal that he was actually Zamasu, a Kaioshin, who'd stolen Goku's body from another timeline, that was a shocker. It went way beyond your typical bad guy.
It felt like a violation.
It was a violation. A violation of Goku himself, everything he stood for, his goodness, his role as protector.
You know,
twisted.
It used to cause so much devastation, especially in Future Trunks' timeline.
Yeah.
It really makes you think about what defines someone, hero, villain.
Definitely. And it brought in all these complex themes, didn't it? Time travel issues, the morality of gods, what happens when divine power goes rogue. Like one source said, it wasn't just a death, it was a violation of existence itself. That captures the kind of unique horror of it.
And speaking of horrors, the end of that arc, the complete annihilation of Future Trunks' entire timeline by Zeno.
Yeah. That's maybe the ultimate example of irreversible consequences in the series.
It wasn't just people dying.
Yeah.
It was everything wiped out. An entire reality just gone.
Mm-hmm. What hits hard there is the sheer finality. Absolute, irreversible.
Not even the Super Dragon Balls could fix that.
Nope. That was Zeno, the Omni King. A cosmic delete button. It just starkly showed how fragile even entire realities are in that multiverse. Some things are truly final, even in Dragon Ball.
Puts things in perspective, for sure. Now, just for context,
Right.
we know death isn't always permanent in Dragon Ball, right?
Yeah, usually no.
The list of characters who've died and come back.
Krillin.
Multiple times.
Poor Krillin.
Master Roshi, Goku himself a couple of times, Vegeta too, Yamcha, Tien, Chaozu, Future Trunks. It's a long list.
A very long list. And that frequency of resurrection, it does create a certain expectation, doesn't it? You almost stop worrying sometimes.
Exactly. Which is why the deaths we've just talked about stand out so much more.
Right. They weren't just temporary exits.
Yeah.
They had real, lasting effects on the plot, on how characters developed, on the whole emotional feel of the story.
One of the sources mentions that way back in the original Dragon Ball, death felt heavier, didn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Think about Grandpa Gohan's death, or King Piccolo actually killing Shenron, making the Dragon Balls useless for a while.
Yeah, that felt genuinely serious. Like, oh, the safety net is gone.
Exactly. Back then, bringing people back wasn't as easy or common, so death had more weight. As the series went on and resurrections became more frequent, the deaths that really mattered needed to leave those deeper scars, emotionally or narratively.
So wrapping up this deep dive, we've hit Piccolo's redemption, Vegeta's pride getting crushed, Android 16 being that tragic trigger, the whole weirdness of Goku Black, and then just the erasure of a timeline.
Quite a journey through some dark moments.
It really makes you think about that balance, doesn't it? Life, death, power, resurrection.
It's all constantly interacting in Dragon Ball.
It really is. And these moments, they prove that even if death isn't always the end, the impact of death can be huge. It shapes characters, drives the story forward in major ways.
Okay, so that leads to our final thought for you, the listener. Thinking about all this, the fragility, the resurrections, the consequences, which of these deaths do you think had the most lasting impact on the Dragon Ball universe?
Was it the emotional fallout? The way it changed the plot? Or just how completely unexpected it was?
Yeah, something to mull over. How did these moments shape how you see the Dragon Ball story and these characters we followed for so long?